Hey, what is up everyone? So, one of the things I was most looking forward to with Season 14 is being able to disguise myself as any type of chest. Now, technically we can't do any type of chest, there's only a selection of them that we can do, but there's a wide selection if you finish the accommodations that are required to unlock it. So in this video what we're going to do is go over all the different disguises that you can unlock, how you actually unlock them, and then my recommendations on how to complete those accommodations. I'll also kind of mention here and there like which ones I think are the easiest disguises to unlock versus which ones are the hardest to unlock, just to kind of give you an idea from my perspective of which ones maybe you should go for first if you're trying to just get some really good disguises quickly. Now there's a bit of a pattern with unlocking these disguises. There's 2 commendations that need to be completed for each of them. One of the commendations is going to be from stuff that has already previously existed in the game, so you likely have a lot of these already progressed to a certain point or maybe even fully completed. For me personally, when I went through and looked at all of these, I had all but 2 of them completed fully, so all I have to do is basically complete the new commendations. So no matter what, you're going to have to do at least some commendations for unlocking any of these, because the other half of these commendations are all the new ones added for this season. Let's start off with the basic treasure chest. For this one you need to get grade 5 in Poisonous Pirate, as well as grade 5 in Repeat Offender. So the Poisonous Pirate commendation requires you to poison pirates or enemies with the blow dart. And then the Repeat Offender commendation requires you to open 50 C4 treasuries. This one I think you can really easily do both of them together, especially if you haven't finished the C4 treasury one, because I would personally recommend just going to a C4 anyways and then using the blow dart there. The phantoms are very easy to take out, and they kind of group together in a small area that you can kind of do repeatedly and take out a lot of them at once, and you can just use the poison dart to take out them over and over again. So that would be my recommendation. Obviously you can use this in other areas if you want to go do a skeleton fort or siren treasury or something, but if you haven't even finished the repeat offender commendation, you can basically take 2 birds out with 1 stone. This to me is one of the easier disguises to unlock, especially if you've already done the repeat offender commendation. Next up we have the King's Chest. This one requires you to get the Creeping Commodore and grade 3 in Treasures Fit for a King. So for the Creeping Commodore, you're going to have to complete all the crouching commendations that can be found on page 2 of the new commendations for this season. Some of these include stuff like while crouched, steal supplies from enemies and skeleton ships, travel distance while crouched on an enemy or skeleton ship, and crouch nearby an enemy player for 10 seconds without being seen. That last one's probably the hardest one out of all these. Obviously, like it says, you can do a skeleton ship, which should hopefully help you get through these a lot faster. If you just go and you could do like a skeleton fleet or something if you want to just go hop in there, or you just find a randomly roaming around skeleton ship. That would be my recommendation. Obviously, if you want to do it on an enemy player, that's even better, probably easier in some ways. But the thing that really makes it hard to unlock this disguise is the other commendation. For me personally, I have not progressed this commendation too far. So to unlock grade 3 in Treasures Fit for a King, you have to sell 250 kingly treasures. So that's a lot of them. There's different ways that you can do this. You can try to do it in the gold hoarder voyages, but honestly some of the easiest ways to do it is basically kind of making sure you're scanning the horizon when you're passing by islands and seeing them around. Usually you can see them on the shore pretty easily, and if you defeat like a skeleton captain, a lot of times the note that they drop gives you one of the kingly treasures. So keep an eye out for that. Shipwrecks are also a good place to find this, but this is definitely one of the harder disguises to unlock. Next up we have the Seamaster's Chest. This requires you to complete the Rusty Bucket Bay commendation. So this one requires you to attract gold skeletons into the water with a lure dart. That shouldn't be too hard. What I would recommend doing is just an Order of Souls voyage that you dive to, probably one of the skeleton captain ones. You could also try a skeleton fort, but obviously it's up to luck if you're going to get gold skeletons for either of these. The other commendation you have to complete is grade 3 in Gold Raider, which this requires you to complete 10 raid voyages for gold hoarders. That's very simple. What I would recommend doing, if you're trying to do all of these together, try to do the raid voyages for the sea forts for the repeat offender commendation that we talked about earlier, and do them as raid voyages for the gold hoarders. That way you can progress several of these commendations all at once. There will also be some other commendations that we talk about after this that you can also do as raid voyages for the gold hoarders if you want. Next up we have the Stronghold chest. This one is definitely one that I want to unlock because I feel like a lot of players kind of overlook some of the other chests that we just talked about, but the Stronghold chests are very high priority for people, so they'll probably make sure that they want to have it on their ship. So hopefully that's a helpful thing with this. So to unlock this one, you have to complete the Hidden in Plain Sight commendation. and this requires you to travel distance while crouched on an enemy ship. So this goes along with the creeping Commodore commendation that we just talked about earlier. So basically, if you're trying to progress that, you'll progress this as part of it. So this is a little bit easier to unlock than the King's Chest one, but obviously it's still difficult to be traveling distance while on an enemy ship. I would definitely recommend trying the skeleton ships like we talked about earlier. And speaking of the skeleton ships, it actually goes along with the next combination you have to unlock for this, which is the Scourge of Skeleton Ships. And this one is not too bad. It requires you to defeat 50 skeleton ships. If you need to complete this one still, I definitely recommend trying to do a skeleton fleet. It will let you take them out a lot faster and just have them all grouped together. But I'm assuming if you've played for a while, you've probably finished this just based off how often they randomly spawn while sailing around. I know for me, when I checked it, I had this completed, and I probably completed it a long time ago. So actually the Stronghold chest one I think is a pretty easy one to unlock as well. But let's move on to the Chest of the Dam. This is another one that I really want to unlock because, as y'all know if you've been watching me for a while, I really like doing the sea forts. So if you're trying to go tuck at a sea fort, this is a good one to use because obviously they'll have lots of these types of chests, so we'll be able to blend in pretty easily. So the first commendation you need to complete for this is the Power of 3, and this requires you to ignite a group of 3 or more phantoms with a black powder dart while they're affected by the Lure Dart. This one is a bit complex, but shouldn't be as difficult for you. What I would recommend is, obviously you should probably go to a sea fort to do this, and that kind of goes along with a lot of the other combinations in this. So if you play it smart, basically do a Gold Hoarder raid voyage to the sea fort, make sure you unlock the treasury, but you're able to complete this at the same time. I would recommend trying to get the phantoms to spawn outside at the bottom level. That way you can run to the very top of the sea fort and then shoot the lure dart down, and then have them grouped together, and then shoot the black powder dart. If you do that, that should be probably the easiest way to complete this commendation. The next commendation is probably a lot harder for some. This is the Scourge of the Dam commendation. Now this is a hefty 500 ghost ships that you need to defeat. Obviously the easiest way to complete this one is doing a ghost ship fleet battle, which you can do a raid voyage for. I would recommend doing the world event version rather than the regular voyage version, just because you'll have more ships to fight, so you can do it a little bit faster. You'll get some more reward for it, and that would be my recommendation. When I saw this one, I had a little bit more to complete, and I hopped in, I did the raid voyage and was able to complete it pretty quickly. Took a little bit of time, but you should definitely check it out and see how much of these you have to complete, and depending on how many of these you have left will determine if this is a good one to go for first or not. Next up we have the Chest of Legends. This obviously is a big one to try to get. For as long as I've played the game, the Chest of Legends has been kind of one of those chests in the game that everyone wants to fight for, even if it's not as valuable as a lot of the other chests in the game. I can totally imagine a hilarious scenario where you have like you and your friend go and board a ship, and then one of you steals the actual Chest of Legends and the other one of you basically stays and tucks there as the Chest of Legends and tricks them into thinking that they've had it the whole time. I think that could be super hilarious and definitely something I want to try when I unlock this. But because this is such an infamous chest in the community, this also has made it a harder one to unlock. So the first commendation you have to complete is probably the hardest one out of all the ones that we're talking about on this list, which is the Pitfall Practitioner. This requires you to complete all the trap commendations on page 3 of the new commendations for Season 14. Some of these commendations require you to make 2 other pirates dance from a trap loaded with a jig ball. Important thing to note, it doesn't have to be an enemy player. You might have to make it so that it's 2 other crewmates. I'm not sure if it will work if it's you and your friend. I don't know if it will count yourself. I think you have to have it be 2 other people. So just keep that in mind. As long as you basically load up a ship with you and 2 others, you should be able to do this pretty quickly. Another one that's pretty easy for you to complete with some friends is hit other players with buried traps. That one shouldn't be too hard to complete. The next one is set a trap on your ship with a red flare loaded and have another pirate trigger it. This again, I believe you can basically have any crewmate complete this and it should work. And then another one is disarm enemy traps. This is probably the hardest one, mainly because it has to be set by enemy players, so you can't have your crewmate set it and then you go and try to complete it. You're definitely welcome to test that out, but based off how I'm reading this and interpreting how they write out the commendations, that is what I'm assuming with this one. So that's the main thing and reason why this is probably the hardest one to complete, because not only do you have to find and engage with other players on the seas, but you also have to find traps that they've put down and then disarm them. And depending on how many you have to do for this, could take a while. The other commendation to unlock this might be harder for some players, whereas for me, I already had it completed when I did this. And if you've been playing the game for a while now, you probably also have this completed. So this is, you have to unlock grade 5 of the Hoarder of Athena's Fortune commendation. And this requires you to earn 300,000 gold from Chest of Legends sold. If you're trying to get this one unlocked, what I would recommend is if you are close to having this completed, you can just do some Pirate Legend voyages to try to unlock it. Or if you're kind of far away from completing this, I would wait till you have a community weekend where it's like a 2.5 multiplier. Also put the multiplier with the emissary grade that you can have for this, and that should also help you progress through this a lot faster. If you don't like doing voyages, you can always do the Fort of the Dam, and that's another way to kind of continuously be able to get Chest of Legends and have a kind of a different route to do it. For me personally, I would prefer to do the Fort of the Dam as opposed to doing a regular voyage, but that's just me. Like I said though, if you've been playing the game for a while now, you probably already have this completed. You just have to go check your Athena's Fortune commendations to see. So depending on your situation, the Chest of Legends disguise may or may not be one of the harder ones on this list. For me personally, I think it's probably the second hardest one on this list, with the final disguise we're talking about probably being the hardest. Our last disguise that we have to unlock is the Chest of Fortune. This is another one that's somewhat newer than Chest of Legends, but kind of holds like the same prestige as the Chest of Legends in my mind. And the first commendation required to complete this one is the Bewildering Blowpipes commendations. And this requires you to complete all Lure, Poison, and Black Powder Dart commendations from page 1 and 2. There's a ton of commendations for this, so I didn't want to list all the ones you have to do for this. I would just recommend going to page 1 and 2 of the new Season 14 commendations and just kind of going through them. Personally, for me, if you want to know what my plan is for this, is I'm just going to let it happen naturally while I play. And then eventually when I get all these other disguises unlocked, I may start focusing in on, okay, what specifically do I need to do? Some of these commendations should already be unlocked if you start doing the other commendations we've already talked about, such as the Poison Pirates or Enemies with Blow Darts for the grade 5 and Poisonous Pirate, which was the first commendation that we talked about. That obviously is one of the ones you need to do for this. Same with the Rusty Bucket Bay commendation for attracting gold skeletons into the water with the Lure Dart. Basically anything that's related to the darts in the blowpipe are going to be counted for this. That's why for me personally, I say this is the hardest one, but it depends on how you like to play the game. The other reason why specifically for me this seems to be the hardest one is it requires you to get grade 3 for Fortune's Favor. And if you don't know what this commendation is, it's for selling the Chest of Fortune. And this requires you to sell 90 Chest of Fortunes to reach grade 3. For me, I've only sold a measly 7 out of the 90 that are needed, so this is going to be a long grind. I typically don't do the world events too often, and I don't really see these that much, and I don't really care to go for them that often, so that's why this is probably going to be the one that takes me the longest to unlock, which is fine. I actually like that they tied this disguise to the Chest of Fortune sold, because it kind of encourages going for the Chest of Fortune more often, and it makes sense. It's a nice reward for that. 90 is a significant amount though, and if you've been going for them since they released back in, I think Season 9 is when they started doing the Chest of Fortune, you may or may not be close to completing this. But that covers every disguise that you can unlock in Sea of Thieves. I hope this video is helpful. This is a little bit different type of video compared to some of the other videos I made. If you like this type of video where I kind of go through different cosmetics and talk about like what combinations you need to complete and how I would complete them, definitely let me know in the comments below. Maybe we can make some more of these if the opportunity arises in the future. But that's all I have for this video. Let me know also in the comments below which disguise are you most excited to use. And if you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you like and subscribe. And until next time, thanks for watching. I'll see y'all later. Bye y'all.